Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk was mostly just Q&A, as a lot of the stuff they've been working on was revealed and talked about in the OB4 patch note show on Friday, but there were still some interesting questions asked and answered, so let's jump in with today's recap. Thor's ult danger indicator showing up earlier than Smite 1 is intended, not a bug. They feel like if it worked like Smite 1, there would be way too little counterplay due to beads being less available. Someone asked if Beacon would make a return, as it was definitely a fan favorite mechanic from the later seasons of Smite 1 alongside Tiki masks. They acknowledge that people love Beacon and it could make a return, or it could be something different, but they are looking at new conquest mechanics all the time. Personally, I'd like to see something new that maybe takes inspiration from Smite 1 mechanics. Beacon was great, I loved it, but it's a new game and I think a new take on Beacon or something new entirely would be more fun and exciting. Regarding the tank situation, they said they've had feedback from some high-level players that the changes in OB4 might be enough to make tanks feel good, but they're basically waiting on data and more feedback from OB4 before going forward with any further changes to tanks, but more changes are definitely not off the table if they do need more. The item store improvements are still targeted for OB5, so we should start seeing some sort of stuff about that next week, hopefully. They do want to add the action has been taken against a player you reported notification, but it's not high priority right now. Not being able to take unknown gods from the team bench in Assault is intended, not a bug. Their reasoning here didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I think Kilkum sort of explained it badly, but the general idea is that they want to keep some level of randomness by letting you re-roll into unknown gods, but taking them from the bench is significantly less random than a re-roll. 2x Worshippers will be active this weekend, so if you want to grind some Ascension passes, that's the time to do it. The god roadmap after Barry is still planned. They're not sure how many gods they want to talk about for it, but with the 10 leaked models we got last week, it's possible quite a few are pretty far along in production, so we might hear about a decent amount of gods in that roadmap. They talked about the nighttime Joust map and how a lot of players felt it looked better than the current daytime version, myself included actually. They did show ambassadors both of these versions in early testing and I voted for nighttime personally. The reason they gave for why it wasn't chosen makes a lot of sense though. Basically, it looks nice in screenshots, but in terms of actually playing the game, abilities, effects, and gods are too hard to see clearly when the core play space is not lit well enough. And if players actually played a few matches on the night map, they would want the day map back pretty quickly. They cited examples like the Season of Souls Year 10 map that most players dislike. Players, whether consciously or unconsciously, prefer a well-lit, bright map, especially in competitive multiplayer games where seeing what's happening clearly is a priority. They did say it's possible to do night maps, but the core play space has to be lit like it's daytime, with only the backdrops and out of bounds areas being dark. Depending on how easy it is to change lighting, it could be interesting to at the very least change this for a single weekend or something, just to see how people feel about it and give them something slightly different to try out. The anti-proxying tech with minions did go live in OB4. Basically, minions get a stack of 25% damage mitigation and 100% physical power per tower remaining in a lane. When they pass through a friendly tower, they lose one of those stacks. So if you're proxying between tier 1 and tier 2, which is what most proxying is, they will have one stack of this buff, making it much harder to proxy. This was kind of surprise dropped without the chance to give feedback, and there's been a lot of blowback to this change from top players. I personally don't love it either, so we'll see how this situation develops going forward. They talked about adding more interact tech to existing Smite 1 gods as they're ported over, given that every new Smite 2 god so far has had some kind of unique interact tech. They basically said they don't want to force it into kits where it doesn't make sense just because it's a new mechanic, and want to find a place where it truly makes the kit better, which I think makes sense. Smite 1 gods were not designed around this system, so it would be hard to find places where it's a strict improvement, especially because players become attached to a very specific way a god plays, and changing that for no reason would just be detrimental to the game. Someone asked about green buff in Conquest and they said it could come back at some point, but the whole system is quite different in Smite 2 with the ability to pick up multiple buffs. I can sort of see where they're getting at here, as it could very well end up being a meta strategy that just giving the jungler both speed and green buff is the best way, while support still gets nothing. Barry's kit will likely be showcased on Friday this week, if not then Monday next week, and she will begin flash testing early next week as well. They said they're not hard committing to a certain number of aspects per patch and want to release them when they're ready. For example, Baron aspect was not ready for OB4, so we only got Thors with this update. They want to find a balance between new gods, ported gods, new items, new mechanics, aspects, all that stuff. And if that means some patches have less or more aspects, then that's what they're going to go with. Mastery skins changing ability colors is something they might be able to do in the future with UE5 tech, but not super soon. Someone asked about making stuff like Milan's flag and Vulcan's thumper into actives instead of consumables, and they said probably not, as they would have to take up an item slot. I guess they could make it so they don't take up an item slot, but that might be a bit confusing. I could still run into similar issues with these kinds of characters being being limited to only 2 active items. Someone asked for a brand new community god vote, where they basically said no, because a brand new god takes around 6 months from start to finish of work, and the hype would die down during those 6 months after the poll vote concludes. King Arthur was mentioned as probably the hardest god to port that they haven't done yet. He was delayed several times and was originally planned to double release with Mordred, which was almost 6 months ago at this point. His unique auto attack, stance switching nature, and full charged ultimate make him very bespoke and time consuming to develop. But they're making good progress on him, and he should come soon. On a similar note, they also mentioned Merlin will be coming, quote, sooner than you think, which might corroborate the recent data mining that Arthur and Merlin will be the gods for OB6. But I guess we'll find out once they release a post-Barry roadmap. Changing the role suggestions and auto builds for gods with aspects that significantly shift their playstyle is on the radar. Someone asked about branching starter upgrades, and they said yes, they are considering doing this, but didn't give a firm timeline or anything. Hopefully this does come soon. This is one of my favorite things about the revamped starter items from Season 8. In regards to pro play, Kilgoon reiterated that no official high production pro league will be coming anytime soon, but they would love to get back to that at some point in the future. They are, however, having talks internally about cash prize tournaments to tide things over until then, and they even said they're considering some kind of in-game tournament mode or other competitive outlet built directly into the game, which I think would be amazing for making community-hosted tournaments much more easily. But that's everything important discussed on today's Titan Talk. If you enjoyed these recaps, don't forget to subscribe for more, and I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.